my little secret. Woo. So we're out here today on the Ninja 400. Hopefully my audio sounds good for most of the ride. Hopefully the video looks fine. I think I have it all configured correctly. Brand new purple Panda microphone. We'll see what happens. Trying to find our place in traffic here. Sorry guys, I get a little distracted. You definitely gotta take the road over whatever else you're doing. I know I'm trying to do a YouTube video, but the road is always the most important thing no matter what. So I want to give my opinions on the Ninja 400. Sorry, I'm going to restart this a little bit. My opinion on the Ninja 400. I love this bike. I'm an experienced rider and I still love this bike. This bike is definitely more than enough for someone who knows what they're doing. This bike has plenty of gusto for most things that you're trying to do. It is not the same as a leader bike. It's not going to hit 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. You're not going to hit 200 miles an hour. In fact, while this thing will do a lot of things fast, it's only fast when you start comparing it to cars. So this thing will hit 0 to 60 in around 4 to 4.5 seconds, depending on who you are. You might be able to get it under 4 seconds, depending on how skilled of a rider you are, depending on your gearing, whatever. You could probably get it under 4 seconds, but 4 seconds is about where this thing lives. But in bike world, this thing is slow. It just is what it is. And when I say bike world, I'm talking super sport world, because that's where everyone likes to compare things. That being said, in the greater scheme of things, this thing keeps up all day with anything. But amongst other commuters, this is pretty quick. And when I say commuters, if you were to take your average cruiser, for instance, they all are slower than this in most of them, unless you start getting in the big 1800s. Some of the really nice Harleys can go a little bit quicker than this, but most of them tap out in the 120 range. Most of them take a mile to get there, and I gotta tell you, as a person who's ridden some cruiser bikes, they don't feel good. So let's talk about the specs on this bike, guys. Sorry, I had to do a little cut there. Got a little rambly. So the specs on this bike, this is a parallel twin 399cc motor. It's a bigger version of the motor in the Ninja 300. Hold on, let me try and see if I can slow down a little bit. I am worried about wind noise, trying to keep it a little down for you guys so you can hear me clearly. So this is built off the Ninja 300 platform, which was an amazing success. That bike introduced a whole new world of possibilities for beginner riders. Ooh, we got some traffic, huh? What's he doing? Little strange slowdown. Ah, I see. I see it. So the Ninja 300, ultralight bike. For its size, it was pretty fast. I think it was about 400 pounds, give or take. Maybe, you know, probably somewhere close to 35 horsepower, 30 horsepower. You know, it was a dope bike for what it was. But then the R3, I think, came out, could have the order of that a little mismatched. But the R3 came out and then did things better. And people found out that the R3 pretty much had all the right power. Ooh, watch out for this guy. So the R3 came out, had all the right power, and then Ninja decided that they did not want to be beat. Kawasaki decided that they couldn't be beat. So they made the Ninja 400, the bigger, badder version of the 300, and they improved the airbox, they improved the motor, and they made this beast. This beast makes about 45 horsepower, somewhere at like 9,000 RPMs, maybe 8,000 RPMs. We are gonna split this, boys, which is good. It's really good for its class. But what's extra special about the power that it's making is that it does it while weighing 360 pounds. Granted, I think it comes a little heavier from the factory, but I've removed a lot of things from this bike. I've got an aftermarket muffler, I got a fender delete, and I know what you're thinking, how does the fender weight delete save you that much money? These people are crazy, holy hell. How does the fender delete save money? The fender is huge on this thing, and it has a solid steel, thick steel frame. So that thing actually weighed a few more pounds than I think you might give it credit for. So I'd imagine this bike sitting at the 360 range, maybe a little under, for very little money, a $40 muffler and a $20 delete, and I'm sitting, you know, a lot of pounds under, which is really good. And I'm making 45 horsepower. This bike feels incredibly quick for what it actually is. Now, it doesn't top out as well, as high, because the horsepower numbers aren't all that great. I see you, my boy. Ooh, he saw me too. I can't believe he saw me. Thank you, sir. Wow, they never see you in there. That is incredible. Good for him. Very very alert driver on his part. So, bike is incredibly quick, incredibly nimble, due to the way they set up the suspension, due to how light it is. It's just very flickable. You see me, I'm weaving through traffic. These people have no idea how to space out. And I just feel like I have the world going on. Okay, excuse me, dude. Wow, blocking me, man. Just trying to get home. So, let's talk about what it feels to ride this bad boy. This bike, in my opinion, is what beginner bikes should be. This bike will set you up for the experience of a bigger bike by imitating a bigger bike without the dangers innately associated with a huge race-born motor. And when I say that, if you notice, I can chill in a low gear and I still have power. I can still accelerate. I can still do things without having to constantly shift. And that's one of the first things you'll notice about a 250 is you're shifting all the time, very quick. The first gear will get you up to like 15 miles an hour on a 250R. Maybe even under that, like 12. It's insane. This one will get you to 24. That's a usable first gear. It's a torquey first gear too. This bike can wheelie in 2 of the gears it has. If you're not, you know, I would say if you're not careful, it's never going to do it unless you're being completely negligent, which is what makes this so beginner friendly. But at the same time, what's fun about it is it can do those things. Whereas the 250 with stock gearing, you might be able to get your wheelie off the ground, or if you clutch dumped at, you know, max RPMs, you might be able to do something. But it's never going to happen off, just by throttle input. Not really. You'd have to really be trying. This thing, you can just do it. It's got the power. It's got the gearing. It's got everything right. It feels like a bigger bike. It's sized appropriately. Now, I'm 250 pounds, give or take, 10 pounds, depending on the month. And I'm 6'4", even taller in boots. And I fit on this bike just fine. The position is super comfortable. My knees are not really bad off. Granted, most of my 6'4" height comes from my torso, not from my legs. So I think maybe if you had longer legs, it would start to get cramped in here. As for me, my torso, I feel fine. I'm a tall boy, and it's not leaning me over too much. It's nothing too crazy. And my legs, they feel comfortable. I think if I were any bigger, it might be a little bit of an issue, but they do make the tall seat. They do make rear sets for this bike. There are solutions for that. I by no means feel like I am a giant on this bike. This bike doesn't feel any different to me than a lot of the other bikes. Man, let me through, boys. With the weight, people are constantly worried on bikes, and I don't get it. They're very much worried about how the wind pushes a bike around. I've never had an issue with wind pushing my bike around unless it was a bike with a windshield on it. And I don't mean one of these. What I mean is one of those big cruiser windshields. Those things act like freaking sails and suck on the highway. Though they're not really an issue to push around, they really just can affect your top end a lot. I had issues, you know, where, you know, they do kind of wobble you in the lane, but it's rare. You need a big gust of wind to do it. This bike, I've never had an issue. I've never gotten blown over. I've never gotten pushed around. I don't think it's an issue, but I also am of the opinion that wind is not usually an issue for motorcycles. You'd have to be in some very serious winds in order for wind to really be something that I would qualify as an issue. Let's talk about the fit and finish of this bike. I think this bike's look is amazing. I think the paint is really good. What is going on here, guys? I think the paint is really good. I think someone hit that barrier back there. That's what happened. So I think the paint is really good on this bike. I think the styles they made are really nice. I think that the finish, all the body work lines up really good. I haven't had any issues with this bike. I've owned it for the last 3,000 miles, 2,500 miles or so. And this bike's relatively new. It's a 2018. And I haven't had any issues so far. Standard maintenance, nothing crazy. It feels good. Everything feels solid. There's no crazy vibrations. I don't feel like I have anything to worry about. I constantly travel at 85 miles an hour, and this bike feels up to it forever. I imagine that this is the kind of bike that when you just do the oil changes as you're supposed to, it'll probably last you a long time. The transmission feels really, really good. I have had 0 missed shifts. I've had no false neutrals, but I do occasionally find myself, especially if I'm wearing shoes and not boots, which I'm not supposed to, I have occasionally bumped from first into neutral instead of finding second, and I think it's more my bad. Like I said, usually happens when I wear shoes instead of boots, which, you know, you can't blame the bike for that. I think that's more of a me thing. Neutral can be a little bit hard to find. Of course, someone trying to wall me in. Fucking shitty Mustang. So I get about 50 to 55 miles per gallon in this bike, and that's not using their estimator. That's me actually calculating it, though their estimator is usually pretty good. Their fuel gauge is spot on. I freaking love the fuel gauge. The miles per gallon estimator usually estimates on the low side, which is good for you because you are way less likely to leave yourself stranded when you plan. But I've definitely caught it to where I've saved more than it thought I would. The fuel tank, I think, is just under 4 gallons with the reserve included. I can usually, before it starts to burn, not 0 bars, but on the last bar it'll start flashing, I get to about 3.1 gallons, which tells me the reserve is probably about a half a gallon to 3/4 of a gallon, which, if you're getting 50 miles to the gallon, is plenty of time to make an emergency stop. And I've never had any issues with fuel injection. The power delivery seems really smooth. The only thing, there is only one quirk I've had with this bike, and that's if I let go of the bars, you can see I'm putting no pressure on the bars, they wiggle a little bit. And I really don't know what it is. I think it has something to do with tires. I'm hoping it has something to do with tires. These tires are pretty squared off at this point. They're nearing the end of their lifespan here. They are the stock factory tires, so they're getting a little old and they're getting a little worn at nearly 5,000 miles on them. So with that being the case, I'm thinking the squared profile is causing a little bit of wobble. Probably just tires, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it's something I never actually felt on a bike before, even with some pretty squared off tires, so maybe not. That being said, I will report back when I get new tires if the issue has been solved. Oh, I hate these. I hate these so much. There we go. So that's my review of the Ninja 400. Oh, real quick, I forgot. The top speed on this bike is really about 110. You can go up to about 125 if you have enough room, but getting there takes time. You can very reliably get up to about 110, 115, depending on the wind, without wasting a ton of time. In 6th gear, this bike has plenty of pull on the highway. You're sitting at about 7,500 to 8,000 RPMs, going 80 to 85. So you are cruising all day comfortably, and you've got plenty of pull left in an emergency situation, especially if you drop down into 5th. You don't need to on this bike, which is amazing, but if you were to drop down to 5th, you'd probably feel a whole lot better about your pull. yeah, I can't say enough good things about this bike. I'm sorry this video was so distracted from all the traffic back there. I had to get off this highway, freaking crazy. But I hope you guys found the video at least a little bit entertaining and informative. Please ask me questions in the bike if you're a newer rider. I want to try and make this channel a little bit more friendly to newer riders. I've always wanted to be able to help more people get into riding. And I want to shout out to my boy Cycle Cruiser. Honestly, if it wasn't for his videos, I wouldn't be riding today. He was the one who inspired me to ride during a bad situation where I couldn't get a car, couldn't get a license, so I learned to ride instead because of him, and I learned to ride relatively safely. I'm sure I do things that he wouldn't always approve of, but I'm a much smarter rider because of the way he has taught me to ride through YouTube. So I'm hoping to give back a little bit there, and I'm hoping, you know, to honor what he did for me and do it for someone else. I'd like for someone else to learn just a little bit of something from me like he taught me, right? Sorry for that little rant, guys, but yeah, thanks again for watching. Again, ask me any questions if you had any about the bike. I will be hopefully releasing some tutorial videos for newer riders and answering some of the crazier questions from the perspective of just a normal everyday rider, not some huge YouTuber. I know that it can be kind of hard to find the right information. All right, guys, that is all that I got for you.